She stood on my land, pointed at my field, and said, "My kids need this more than you do." I laughed, until her lawsuit almost ruined my life. What happened next exposed lies, greed, and a twist that shocked the entire town, so buckle up, and if you love true-style revenge stories where entitlement backfires hard, hit subscribe now, because this one escalates fast and ends in a way no one saw coming. I bought my field 10 years ago, a quiet stretch of land just outside town, bordered by old oak trees and a shallow creek. Nothing fancy but everything to me because it was the first thing I ever owned outright after growing up with nothing, and I used it for farming experiments, beekeeping, and sometimes just sitting there at sunset thinking about how far I'd come. And for nearly a decade nobody cared about it at all until the suburban development sprang up nearby and suddenly my peaceful field became the only wide open green space in a sea of identical houses and manicured lawns, which is when Karen noticed it, the self-appointed queen of the Neighborhood Parents Association, who first approached me with a smile so fake it almost hurt to look at, telling me how wonderful it would be if I donated my field so her kids and their friends could play soccer, as if land, effort, and years of taxes were nothing compared to her children's weekend entertainment, and when I politely declined, explaining it was private property and also actively used, her smile vanished instantly and she told me I was selfish, anti-community, and denying children their right to play, which would have been laughable if she hadn't returned the next weekend with cones, goals, and 20 kids trampling my crops while parents parked on my access road like they owned it, and when I confronted her she told me I should be grateful my land was being put to good use, and that if I tried to stop them she'd make my life very difficult, which turned out not to be an empty threat because within weeks I received a formal-looking letter accusing me of maintaining an unsafe property that caused injuries to children during a soccer game, injuries that supposedly happened when a kid tripped in a drainage ditch I'd dug years earlier for irrigation and clearly marked with signs, and suddenly I was being sued for medical bills, emotional distress, and loss of enjoyment of childhood, a phrase so absurd it made me nauseous. But the nausea got worse when my lawyer explained that even ridiculous lawsuits can be expensive to fight and that Karen had already rallied the neighborhood behind her with a carefully edited version of events where I was a greedy landowner who refused to let kids play and then set traps that hurt them, and for a while it felt like the whole town turned against me, parents whispering when I went to the store, anonymous complaints filed with zoning, inspections showing up weekly, my bees vandalized, signs knocked down, and the pressure was relentless. But what Karen didn't know was that I'm meticulous to a fault, the kind of person who documents everything, because years earlier a neighbor had tried to encroach on my boundary and I learned my lesson, so I had dated photos of the field, survey records, posted signage, security camera footage covering the access road, and most importantly drone footage I used to monitor crops, footage that just happened to capture the day of the injuries, clearly showing Karen instructing kids to move cones directly into the restricted drainage area, laughing as one parent warned her it wasn't safe, and then later, after a minor fall that resulted in nothing more than a scraped knee, her staging a dramatic scene, calling an ambulance, and loudly declaring she'd make sure the owner paid, and the deeper we dug the worse it got for her because discovery revealed she'd filed similar lawsuits before in other towns, always after organizing unsanctioned activities on private or restricted land, always claiming negligence, always settling quietly, and suddenly the narrative flipped. But the real twist came when my lawyer uncovered that Karen's husband was on the WA board of the new development and they'd planned from the beginning to pressure me into selling the field cheaply so it could be converted into a community sports area that would raise their property values, meaning the lawsuit was never about injured kids at all, it was leverage, extortion dressed up as concern, and when this came out in court the judge's expression alone was worth years of stress, because not only was the case dismissed, but Karen was sanctioned for filing a frivolous lawsuit, ordered to pay my legal fees, and referred for further investigation, and that should have been the end of it, but karma wasn't finished yet because once the truth became public the neighborhood parents who'd supported her felt betrayed, especially when footage showed their children being put at risk without permission. The WA board member husband resigned in disgrace, property values dipped due to the scandal, and the city fined the WA for repeated false complaints against me, while I, the supposed villain, suddenly received apologies, baked goods, and awkward waves from people who'd avoided me for months. And with the settlement money from Karen's sanctions I did something that probably infuriated her more than anything else could have. I improved my field, installing better fencing, clear signage, and a conservation easement that permanently protects it from development, then partnered with the city to fund a proper public sports park 2 miles away on land actually meant for that purpose, complete with safe fields, insurance, and supervision, making it crystal clear that I was never against kids playing, I was against entitlement, lies, and people who think other people's property exists for their convenience. And the last time I saw Karen, she was loading boxes into a moving truck, not making eye contact, while a "for sale" sign stood in front of the house she'd once ruled like a queen. And as I walked back to my field, quiet again at sunset, I realized something important. Standing your ground doesn't make you selfish, sometimes it just exposes who really is.